Hello, my name is Dan Humberg. I represent HarvestFires.com. If you're watching this video, you're probably somehow considering or looking at the possible installation of a combine kit to prevent fires on your combine. The particular video that we're looking at is an instructional video showing you how to bend up or fold the tin for the enclosure on the exhaust components. In this case, the combine is a Case IH model 7230 combine. The video shows you how to bend the flat pieces of tin and then assemble them into the box that fits around the exhaust components. Before we do that, before we start that process, I always kind of give a disclaimer to say that the Firestop kit that I market is very effective at stopping the chronic fires that occur in crops that have a very volatile dust. Sunflowers are the poster child for that, but there are other crops, lentils, canola, safflower, that also have that issue. While the kit is very effective at doing what it does and preventing the ignition of those dusts at the hot exhaust components, I cannot guarantee that you'll never ever have a smolder or fire on your combine. There's just too many other things that can cause an ignition of dust. It could be a hot bearing, it could be something that's a electrical short or an alternator that throws sparks. It could be a friction spot where something wraps around a shaft and it creates friction to start the fire. The kit will probably dramatically reduce the number of smolders that you have, but you still need to be vigilant for those other possible sources that are less frequent. Okay, before we begin folding up the tin, I want to show you some things about tools that might help you if you're looking at doing this yourself. I'm going to get you to look down at the bench here. Okay, the pieces of tin that we're going to work with are 24 gauge galvanized steel. They're relatively thin and easy to work with. In many places we're going to bend flanges. That's really what you're going to do, is bend the places that we use flanges to attach pieces together. If you can see this, I don't know if I can get it close enough so you can see it, but there are perforations in this here. The laser is actually cut through a dashed line here so that it will preferentially bend on that spot. And that's the case with all of these pieces. Most of these, like this one, you could actually bend with your fingers by hand. But there are some longer ones that it helps to have a tool for. I have a number of different tools. This one is a sheet metal tool. I bought it at Harbor Freight. It has about a 6-inch jaw that'll help us bend some pieces that are 6 inches or longer flanges. This is another sheet metal tool. This one happens to be a Vice Grip brand. I believe I bought this one at Runnings. It also is helpful in bending smaller flanges. Also have this tool. This one I think I bought on Amazon. It's designed for doing sheet metal things. It has a slot in the edge here, and you can slide the piece of tin in there up to the line you want to bend on, and then bend it. This is really handy for doing some of the longer bends. If you're buying a kit, I very likely will enclose a small piece of one of these, about 6 inches like that you can use to bend some of the flanges. It just makes it a little bit easier, so I try to ship a piece of one of these. If you want a longer one, you can buy one online. I also keep a good sheet metal sheet metal shears handy. This one is probably better for making left turns than it is for making right turns, but well, the kit fits fairly well. Once in a while they move an oil line a half an inch or something like that, and you may end up trimming something to make it fit a little bit better in your case. So have a good sheet metal shears or snips handy. I have one other tool that I use that you probably can't buy, but you can make it really easily. I use this for the longest bends on some of the pieces of steel. It's just a piece of scrap angle iron. This is a 1-inch flange, 8-inch thick piece of scrap angle with another piece of strap, flat strap, that's bolted to it. The strap in this case is, I think, 1.5 by 3/16. I drilled a hole at each end to be able to put a bolt through so that the strap lines up with the edge of the angle. And if I have a long flange to bend, I can slip it in that between the two, close the bolts a little bit on the end, and then put it in a vise. I've got a vise right on the end of the bench here. Set it in there, tighten it up, and then I can bend that piece of sheet metal over and get a nice long clean bend. You don't have to do that, but most of you probably have materials for something like this in your scrap bin, and you could make one in about 10 minutes, and it allows you to make cleaner bends. You don't get any buckling of the steel by bending a long flange in a bunch of steps. So you don't need it, but if you like to have it really done neatly and have the flanges really crisp and clean, this will help you. If you're going to do more than one kit, then this is probably worth the effort for sure. Okay, I think that brings us to the point where we could start bending tin. Each piece that I send you will have a number cut into it. At least it should, unless it's an earlier prototype set of tin. This one has C73 and then a 1 with an underscore under the 1. C73 is my shorthand for 7230. The 1 means this is part number 1. And I believe that this piece, if you look at it like this, that's the back side of the number. The front side of the number where it reads correctly is here. If we flip it over so that the number is facing down, and this tab, this little one back here with the hole in it, would bend up 90 degrees. Many of the bends will be 90 degrees. Not all of them, but many of them. And this one, I'm going to guess that this one gets bent down 90 degrees. I'm not certain about that. We'll find out when we put it together. If we bend it the wrong direction, you can bend it back. You can do this 2 or 3 times before it starts to fatigue that seam and would eventually break it. And you also notice there's a keyhole cut here in this thing. Looking at the back side of the numbers here, I would push that down just a little bit, or turn it over and lift it up, maybe about 3/16 of an inch like that. That's actually a port to let some air out of the box, and the air blast from your radiator is going to be coming this way, and as it lofts over that little lifted tab, it'll create a low pressure area here and tend to pull some of the air from inside the box out, and that's actually a healthy thing in some locations. So that's part number 1. One flange bent down, the other little one bent up. This is part number 2. I believe this one would go this way. It's the mirror image to the first one. These are a piece that goes below the exhaust manifold. This one has several flanges. This little one again will bend up. These ones on the end will also bend up 90 degrees. And this longer one here, it has the number in it. We're looking at the back side of the number, so it's upside down. That will also bend up 90 degrees. We can do that one. This is a good case, makes a good case for this one. Slide it in there to the line. There. You can adjust them by hand quite a bit, but I'm looking for a 90-degree bend. So there we have that kind of a tray. I'm going to push this keyhole down just a little bit, so he's sticking out about like that. And that's part number 2. Has a C73 and then an underscore and a 2 right here. This is part number 3. The 3 is in the flange. I generally try to put the number in a flange where it's cutting through and the number doesn't bother the air integrity of the system. And I'm going to bend these. I'm looking at the number reading correctly right side up like this. And I'm going to bend these 2 chunks at the end, each about 45 degrees, so that I get a total of 90 degrees between the 2 bends. It's going to go around a corner. And then all of these tabs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 will get bent away from this face. The ones on the bottom where the number is here, those are 90-degree bends. I'm going to do the easy ones with my hand. I'll probably do the bigger one here with this. So 90-degree bends there. These bends on the what I call the top of this part, they get a little bit more than 90 degrees. There's actually a line here, the line with these bends that this lines up along. Those tabs should lie in a plane with that line. There, so they go a little bit past 90 degrees to where this whole thing with the flanges all lines up like this. Okay, that's part number 3. Part number 4, very similar, goes on the other end. We're looking at the face here with the numbers where they read correctly, C73-4, and I'm going to bend these two pieces, these two flanges, 45 degrees and 45 degrees so that they go around that corner again and make a total of 90 degrees between the two of them. Probably a little more of that one and a little less of this one. There. So it looks like that. Part number 4. Part number 5 has the patent number on it. This is the top of the overall enclosure. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges. One of them is a very long one here, this one with the part number in it. That's going to bolt to the block right above the exhaust manifold. That's what these elongated holes are for. They cross threaded holes that are not used otherwise on the block. Now I'm going to use my long tool to bend that, and I'll probably go offline to do that, but the others would bend. In this case, I'll show you the bends when I come back. Okay, I'm back. I used that long tool in the vise to bend this long flange, and it bends a little more than 90 degrees. It bends, again, when you're looking at the number read correctly, you see 73.5, we're going to bend that long flange up. And we're going to come over the top about 10 degrees beyond 90 degrees. So that when we bolt it on the block, this first part actually will slope up or up and away from the block or the exhaust manifold a little bit. That's part number 5. I'm going to take these small tabs. These bend down pretty much 90 degrees. This one will be a little bit more than 90 degrees because he's going to go down the front box around the exhaust manifold. It'll be parallel to this back flange. If you get it even close by 90 degrees, you can always force it over a little bit more just by hand because the material works so easily. There we go. Those are the bends on part number 5. This is part number 6, C73-6. Again, we're looking at part number 6, C73-6, so when the numbers read correctly, it's face up like this. I'm going to take this one. I've got flanges all the way around the edge here. This first one on it's my left, your right. How do I identify it? It's the one, let's see. It's away from this funky cut out here that goes around the turbo bearing. So it's this one here. It's just close to the number off this side. That one I'm going to bend up towards me. (90 degrees). Everything else, the one with the number in it, the little one, and the one opposite here, all bend down the other way, 90 degrees. Okay, that's part number 6. 1, 2, 3 flanges bent over. This flange on this side bent up 90 degrees. 6. This is part 7. Again, we're looking at the face with the number that reads correct right side up. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges. These are all going to bend away from this face 90 degrees. Okay, that's part number 7. When you read the numbers, that flange with the numbers read correctly, or read right side up, bends down, and all the other flanges as well bent down away from this face. This is part number 8. Again, we're looking at the side with the numbers read right side up. I'm going to take this long one here. This is the one with the number. This is the one adjacent to that one. I'm bending this one up 90 degrees. Everything else goes down 90 degrees. Okay, part number 8. Okay, this is part number 9. In this case, I think I have the numbers cut through from the side I didn't intend to. It doesn't matter. It's just that's my helps me keep the thing right side up. But now we're looking at the back side of the numbers in this case, or the numbers from the back. That would be C73-9. Now we flip it over. Take 1, 2, 3 flanges, bend them all 90 degrees away from this face. So I'm going to bend them down. Okay, part number 9, C73-9. This is part number 10. Okay, back to part number 10. Look at the number. When the number reads correctly, C73-10, flip it over. These are the lines that serve the oil lines to your turbocharger bearing. The smaller one is a hard line, a steel one that comes up through here, goes over the top of the bearing. This one serves the drain line, the one that drains it back to crankcase, a larger tube. Okay, we're going to put bends in here. I've got this is piece number 7, and these two match up. And so the first bend I'm going to make is this about 2-inch flange with the numbers, looking at the numbers reading right side up, C73-10. I'm going to bend this like this, but it's not 90 degrees. It's more like about, I don't know, maybe not quite 45 degrees. That's about right. I did it about right in that case. The rest of these bends are going to be at angles that wrap it around part number 7. So we can actually use 7 as a template. In that case, I just used the edge of the bench to bend those. This one I got about right. That fits. This one's got to go more. We're getting there, but I still haven't got it. There we go. Now we can slap part 7 in there and fits around it. That gives us the right angles. And this 2-inch flange with the number in it here should be about 90 degrees to this corner when you fit it up in there. That'll get it really close, and we can adjust it on the machine if we need to make it fit. So that was part number 10. This little flange up here with the dotted line, you could probably bend it out a little bit. That's actually going to be adjusted on the machine to fit around the wastegate actuator on your turbocharger exhaust turbine. So we'll do that when you get on the machine probably. But you can bend it out a little bit if necessary now. That's part number 10. Okay, this is part number 11, and it's quite a bit like the other one. It's going to fit around the exhaust turbine. I'm using part number 6 as a template this time, and this is going to fit right, I don't know if you can see this, but we're going to fit it right here and wrap these pieces around. And these other flanges will bend down to fit around. So I'm going to take this one, a little bit more. That's about right on that one. This next one is only about 10 or 15 degrees. That was a little too much. So there we got that. That's close enough. This one with the numbers in it, C7311, that one will bend up, but only about, I'm not sure the exact angle. And then these two tabs, the one on each side here, these are going to bend down to match this angle right here. So we'll do that. I'm just going to do it on the edge of the bench here. There, I got that one pretty close. So that one there, and then this tab in the middle here, that one again will fit around your wastegate actuator. It looks like we're going to have to might have to cut just a little bit with a tin snips. There's a little tab connected here, but that piece will need to be able to bend in or out to fit around that. There's a kind of a bracket that holds part of your wastegate actuator there, and we have to try and fit around it. Okay, part number 11. Don't worry too much about this flange with the number in it for right now. We'll adjust that when we get on the machine. Okay, this is part number C7312. Says it right in this flange here. I'm going to flip it over. And so that the numbers are upside down. Wonderful thing, video, you can always edit the things where you make a mistake. I have now folded this thing twice and gotten it wrong twice. And now I've flattened it out a third time, and so I can start over again. Wouldn't it be nice if life was that easy to edit? Anyway, so we're looking at the back side of the numbers here. We flipped it over, and I'm going to bend this up into a shape that is it's most of or part of an octagon. We're making an octagon shaped pipe that is going to enclose the exhaust pipe after it leaves your exhaust turbine. No, that's not an octagon yet, or not. But we're getting there. There. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the sides of an octagon. Again, I'm looking at the back sides of the numbers here, and I've bent up the outsides to form that pipe. This cutout here is going to be for your depth injection port on the exhaust pipe. So we'll wrap this thing around the exhaust pipe from underneath and have this go around that depth injection port. Now, these flanges down on this end that have different widths and are angles and stuff like that, these are going to bend out away from the faces away from the inside of the octagon. The way to know whether you've got the angles right or not is that they will all line up in a plane. There we go. If we do that right, they're all in a plane, so if I put it down on the bench, all of those tabs sit flat on the bench, and the tube sort of slopes up at an angle. That's going to hook onto the piece around your exhaust turbine, the enclosure there, and it's going to slope up underneath your exhaust pipe away from that. So that's that piece. These on the end, these tabs on the end that have kind of a, I don't know, banana cutout on them, these are going to fold in and they will go around your exhaust pipe. They'll come up to the exhaust pipe, and you can kind of do them a little bit at a time like I'm doing here. You don't have to bend them now. We can actually bend them in place on the combine. But they'll come up to that exhaust pipe and kind of tighten it up so that it gives us a little bit of resistance to air leaving there. So that's part number 12. It says 12 on the outside of this tab. Part number 13 is going to be the mate to that. It has the part number 13 out here on the tab with again with these banana or these curved cutouts that go around your exhaust pipe. So we're looking at the top or the numbers correctly here that read correctly, and then we've got these tabs down on the other end. This is going to be the same arrangement. Now we're going to bend these away from this face. So we're going to bend these tabs like this. Okay, I probably overdid them a little bit, but it's pretty easy to make it relax a little bit. And now this piece, it will fit probably over the top, now maybe inside. It fits up to the last piece, 12, that we just did. And you'll actually be able to see how it fits together. So it makes that octagon tube I was talking about. So those are the primary bends on part number 13, and then we have to bend these tabs. Again, these down on this end, away from the number, part number, get bent up so that they're all three in a plane. Again, if you get them bent up so that they sit flat on the bench like that, you're getting close. And then these ones on this end bend in a little bit to fit up against your exhaust pipe. So if you look at the end like this, and it looks like if you continued around you had to have an octagon, then you're doing it right. Part number 13. Now we have parts 14 and 15, and these are going to fill in around that depth injection port on your exhaust tube here. I'm going to use this as a check to make sure I get them correct. There are a series of holes here, and these will line up when we have it done, when we've done it correctly. The holes line up and the seams, the bend lines line up. So I think I've got that correct. This one, part 6, excuse me, I got 15 here and 14 here. And again, when I do that, the holes for the screws line up, and you can see the opening there for the depth injection port. Makes a continuous hole. So now we need to bend, these dotted lines to fit around this, over the outside of this one that we, part number 12 down there. So he'll go like that, and this one, 14, will bend around this way. Careful, some of these are got real sharp points on them. There we go, that'll be close enough for now. They'll go on like that. A little sharp thing, you can trim that off if you want to. We'll tape over that area anyway, so don't hurt yourself. Okay, that was parts 14 and 15. I believe that those are the last parts to form up, because we're kind of working through the thing the way that we would put it together. And the very last thing is these tabs that go around your exhaust pipe. It's about a 6-inch pipe, maybe 5-inch pipe, maybe it's 4 inches. Anyway, you can bend these in one at a time. Probably do every other one, you know. But I'd wait until you get on the machine to do that. Then you can bend that one in, bend these in, and then fold the corners in as tight as you can. Don't have to do that now. Okay, those are the bends for the 7230. In the next little video, or maybe we'll edit it into one, I'm not sure, I'm going to put these together temporarily with some of the screws that I provide for you, and we'll show you how it fits together into a unit. And it helps to do that. I strongly recommend that you do this on the bench. You bend the parts up, then you put it together as a hollow shell on the bench with some screws, and you run a screw in through every hole. You don't have to leave them in there, but you run them in through every hole so that those holes get pre-threaded and tapped for those screws. Makes it much easier to put it together on the machine. Once you have it assembled into a unit here, you can also see the shape, see where things overlay each other, fit together, and you can also take a Sharpie marker and mark things so that you can, when you have it taken apart again, you can line up the marks really easily on the machine, and it makes it easier to realize how did that go together. When you're in the hole between the engine and the grain tank, you don't want to have to sort that out again. You want to be able to just look at the parts and see, oh, I match up these marks, and then it'll work. So I'll come back in a minute and we'll start that assembly process. Okay, this is Dan Humberg again. We're going to do a bench assembly of the tin set for a Case IH 7230 combine harvester Firestop kit. I have the parts all bent up. We just did that in the previous video. Now I'm going to do at least a light assembly of it. I recommend that you do the full assembly of it on your bench into the shell. I don't know that I have enough screws right here now to do the whole thing. Plus, I don't have to do the whole thing right now. I'm just showing you how to do it. I want to keep the video length shorter. But you should put it together and put a screw in every hole so that when you get on the combine, those screw holes are pre-threaded and it makes it easier for it to go together. Now, I've gathered a bunch of parts here. I've got parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the bench, and those will go together pretty quickly here. So let's take I'm actually going to take part number 5, that's the top of the overall enclosure, and then part number 3, and I'm going to lay part number 5 on top of 3 like this, and the shape of them should show you how 3 should have been bent if it didn't get bent that way. And I'll put a screw in to hold it together. The screws I'm going to send you with your kit are number 2 square drive, self-drilling, self-tapping sheet metal screws. They're pretty good screws. And they will generally stay on the bit. I'll send you several different driver bits to use. Right now I'm using about a 6-inch one. Sometimes it's more convenient to use a short one, but this is what I got on here right now. Set the clutch on your drill or driver, whatever you're using to put it together. You can do it by hand too, but you probably want a drill driver. Set the clutch on it down real low because it's pretty easy to strip these out if you're not careful. Well, there's one on the floor. Okay, I put 3 screws in. That holds it together and shows you the orientation of the parts. Notice that this is going to hook onto the block. That will all be in one plane. And then we slope up a little bit over the top of the exhaust manifold and then go straight down. I'm going to take piece number 1. That will go on the bottom. Okay, there's 3 pieces for the... I can see something that I did wrong. I bent this tab on part number 1 90 degrees out. You can bend that down back flat again. That one just overlaps the adjacent part. Needs very, very little, if any, bend to it. Now we're going to go over to the right end of this. And this one will lie over the top like this. We'll screw it on. The larger hole is the one where the screw obviously goes through first. That'll tell you which part lays on top, because the part on top is going to have the larger screw hole. Okay, that's parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. When I look at this, I think you may actually be able to, when you get on the machine, you may actually be able to use parts number, let's see, it's 5, 3, and 4 could probably be assembled and sit down over the top of the manifold. You'll have to put these bottom pieces on when you're on the machine, or after you get the others on. But you can also, well, we could put a screw through here now, but I have a feeling we're going to have a third piece that overlays that, so I won't do that yet. We're going to go next to part number 6. Part number 6 is going to screw on right there. So this is the top up here with the patent number, and this part number 6 has this long slope here, and then this one tab that we bent out. The others we bent in. We're going to put him right on there and screw him on. Okay, this is part number 7. It will mate into part number 6. That's the part number out here on the outside. I'm going to lay it on the inside, come in from this way, on this one. And I'm going to put a screw in. From inside to the outside here. That one may be very difficult to reach. When you're on the machine, you're going to have to use the foot-long driver bit I give you and go behind the turbine in order to reach to do that one, to get that one in there. It may be easier to put the outside ones in first. These go from right to left. And I've got a couple of them there. I'm only going to use one right now, but we're hoping that one of these goes into a gap in the compressor turbine, that we're right up against the face of the compressor turbine with this part, and that turbine has recesses cast into it, and we got to hit one of those with one of these screws, otherwise the screw will push this away from the side of the compressor turbine. If you need to, you can always shoot through a screw in a different location. They are self-drilling, self-tapping screws, so if you need to do that to make it hit a gap in that compressor turbine, you can do that. So I'm just going to put one through there. It holds this together, one in the front, one in the back. Now we come to part number 8. It's kind of the mate or the right-hand side to the previous one over here. It has this flange that's bent out, and it should line up here with these two holes here. Looks to me like the holes on the laser or the computer model didn't cut the holes in the underlying part there. So we'll have to shoot those through there. It'll take a little more effort, but they'll go through. My battery is dying. I gotta go get a different battery. Right, the next piece is part number 9. Part number 9 is the mirror image of part number 7 over here. It will go on from the outside, from this side, onto the other, and pick the screw holes that are, well, I'm going to pick the screw holes that are farthest up here away from the center, because we're going to run into other things later on. Oops, that's a little much. There, 2 is good enough for me, but you're going to need to put more screws in there. Next part is going to be number 10. He's going to wrap around here like this. I'm going to pick not the top hole, because this piece will overlay from on top and hit that one. Okay, so that piece wraps around and begins to enclose your exhaust turbine. I will point out that these 3 screws on here are underneath the exhaust manifold. They may be difficult to reach, but you need to try to get those 3 in under there, because they kind of tie this together. That's where this little stubby screwdriver comes in. Sometimes you may not be able to see those while you do it. You have to reach in underneath that exhaust turbine, find the hole, get the screw started in there, and thread it in. That's why you want to have put these in on the bench, so that they're pre-threaded holes. Alright, that was piece number 11 that went on, and at that point you can see there's this opening that's going to be needed there. This is where that wastegate actuator bracket will come through. And so those pieces will open and close to fit as closely as we can around that. So now we've got the exhaust manifold and the exhaust turbine enclosed with a box, more or less. Now we just have that exhaust pipe to enclose here. Okay, we're going to try and put piece number 12 on. The edges of the flanges that we bent on the bottom of this, some of these, like here, here, and here, will actually line up with the outer shell of this to help you know when you've got it oriented correctly. So it's gonna slope up kind of parallel to this box around the manifold, and I can kind of line up this edge along the bottom edge here and tell when I've got it lined up correctly, and then I'll put a screw in. Once you get one screw in, everything else starts to line up. Okay, I have enough screws to hold that piece in place, and we'll try and put the piece that goes inside of it, slips inside like that. Again, if you get one screw in the correct hole, of course, then everything else starts to line up. Okay, I'm not going to try and put these screws back in the backside between the manifold cover and the exhaust pipe cover. That's going to be a job for this little bitty screwdriver back in there, and it's not real fun, but there's 2 screws there to do, so it's not so bad when you get to that point. You get to that point, you're on the home stretch anyway. This is part 15. Alright, that's not anywhere near all the screws, but I don't have to do any more than that to show how this goes together. Those are the last 2 pieces to go on. I will point out that we've cut these fingers in here, or daisy petals, whatever you want to call them. When you put this on, then you'll tuck those petals underneath the stainless steel shield, heat shield that Case puts around the DEF injection port. So these will dive down, you fold them in so that they dive down underneath before you screw this on, so that they're down underneath there. Then you can put some of that aluminum foil tape around here to kind of seal this up so that we don't lose too much air around that DEF port. But we're on the tail end of the system by then anyway. What we lose for air out of here after this doesn't matter as much. The other thing that occurs is when you inject the DEF at this point, that's a urea water solution. When you spray that into the exhaust system, it's going to reduce the temperature of the exhaust very, very quickly after this point. So now you're not always injecting DEF. If there's no NOx in the system, it's not going to call for DEF. But if you are generating NOx, it's going to be squirting DEF in there, and it's going to be cooling down your exhaust so that it's less of a threat for a fire after this point. Up to that point, you're definitely a fire threat. Alright, so we've put the system together on the bench. You will have put screws in all of the holes so that they're all pre-threaded. You can screw them in and take them back out if you want, but at least run a screw in through each one. This is the hole where your air is going to go in. We've got what do they call it, a takeoff fitting for a duct, HVAC fitting that goes in there that will come out of there and be the stub that goes onto a Flex 90, it'll come up and go onto your first piece of rubber tubing and go up over the valve cover on your engine. The last thing I would recommend you do, I've only got 2 Sharpies in my pocket right now, and they're both blue. Usually I've got more colors. I would take several different colored Sharpies if I were you, and I would mark things like here where we're crossing these 2 pieces. I would make a line or 2 lines or 3 lines or some shape crossing there so that you can line those up when you put it together on the machine, and you know that, okay, that piece goes right there. You can do anything you want anywhere on this, and do like that. Down here, this one, we can show that this crosses there. That one there. These on the end, it's good to know which one goes inside and outside here. That's going to be up against the exhaust turbine, so you won't be able to see it. It's better to put that one on the inside. A little hard to get to, but we can make marks on the inside as well. Anyway, I know how this goes together, so I don't necessarily have to do that in order to make sense out of it. But when you're in that combine and you've got a basket full of parts that you're putting together, it's really nice to have some reference marks or witness marks that you can put together to know that, okay, that piece goes right there, and when that's lined up, I should get a screw in there, and then everything will go together after that. So I strongly recommend you do it. You can write anything you want on here to help yourself when you get in the combine. Okay, so that's the tin kit for a Case IH 7230. I hope that helps you get it together. Once you've got it together, you also can kind of, stick it in your mind as to how these pieces went together, because they're going to go back together that way on the combine, but it's just not as apparent. I do think you could probably do this top piece and the 2 faces on here as a unit and set that down over to get started. After that, though, you got to start putting pieces on a piece at a time. Some of them are hard to reach. All of them are possible to reach. I've done it, so I think if you can get in there with this little stubby underneath, and you can reach the spots that are tough to get a screw in. But again, if you've pre-threaded those holes, it's not so bad to put a screw in when you get down there. So I hope that helps with this. There are other videos for the, well, there isn't probably a good video for the installation of this particular kit on a 7230. I don't have one around here to put this set of tin on to make that video. However, this kit and the 8230 8230 has the depth injection port here. It's a little bit bigger engine, but the configuration of the tin is very similar to this. And so I think you could watch the installation video for that tin set for the 8230, and it would probably help you with how to put the pieces together on the combine for this one. Now, the other thing I'll try to do is to make a video using the CAD diagram, and that shows these pieces all color-coded, kind of like this, but shows them in 3 dimensions on the computer, and you can look at that video, and I'll step through how you would go about putting those pieces on the combine in that CAD video. So hopefully you get that one to you. But even without that one, having this set together like this will help you tremendously in how to put it on the combine, because it's the same puzzle. It's just a matter of which piece goes on next. And we kind of do the combine pretty much the way that we did the assembly here. These pieces, top and front, around the manifold first, then the sides of the enclosure around the exhaust turbine, and then once that, you do the wrap from the bottom and then from the top around the exhaust turbine, and then these 2 pieces that go around the exhaust pipe, and then these patch pieces to fit around your depth injection port. So this one is really not bad. None of them are fun to put on. Try not to use language that's going to make you do penance when you're on the machine, but I understand that it's a challenge to sit in that hole and put these things together. I do strongly recommend that you wear some kind of hat with a brim while you're in that hole, not because it looks really cool or because you need shade from the sun, But when you drop something in there and you bend over to get it, there are many, many hard, sharp things in that spot, and I found them all with my head at one time or another. The brim on the hat is an early warning system that you're getting close to something that's about to hurt. So anyway, that's the tin for a 7230. I hope it works for you, works well for you. You can always call me if you really get stuck, but hope that'll help you get it put together and on the machine. Oh, the other thing that I don't know, if I don't do one on the machine, I probably wouldn't have an opportunity to tell you. I send a bunch of that aluminum foil tape with the kit. You can cut that 2-inch strip or whatever it is, 2-inch or 3-inch strip in half if you need to. I sometimes put that strip over these seams where you've got these little leaks from the perf cuts, and that will tighten up some of those perforation cuts so we don't leak as much air out of there. You can also use that tape around things like where the oil lines come out the bottom here. These petals are cut here so that you can take a pliers or needle nose pliers and bend them open so that they clear the line and don't rub against it. You don't really want them touching that line, but you really don't want a big gap around there either. What you really don't want is the sharp edge of this, which is hardened by the laser cutting it up against that oil line, because it could abrade through it and then you lose your engine oil, and then really bad things happen. So make sure that this fits with some clearance around there, but don't hesitate to use some of that tape to tape over the area around there and tighten it up so we don't lose too much air out of any one spot. These tabs you can open up about 1/4 of an inch so that the air lofting over there pulls some air out of that part of the enclosure. One thing that's different on this one from the 8230 is that I've got these holes. These will go over a hole in the block. I think it's a 10mm hole, and I give you button head cap screws with these in order to go in through these. And so when you put this piece on the bottom, you kind of have to put that one on first and then slide these others down over the top of it to put these screws through. So that's a little bit of a challenge to get that one on, and you need to put it on there, and you need to at least make it reasonably snug before you put the outer covers on. So there's one there, there's one down at this end, and those hold it tight onto the block. So you don't want to try and utilize those if you can. But you can put that aluminum foil tape over the perforation seams. You can also run a strip of it over the screw heads if you wish to. That will act a bit like Loctite on the screw heads and keep them from vibrating loose, since it'll keep them anchored down under that sticky tape. So you can run a strip over here, wherever you're concerned about it rattling those screws loose. It doesn't hurt to run that strip of tape over the top of those screw heads. So it'll make it a little bit more challenging if you ever need to take it apart, that's for certain, but it makes for a good way to lock things together with that tape. You can also use it around this hole, this depth injection port hole. So that's the kit for the 7230. I hope it works for you. I hope that you have a much safer harvest with the Firestop kit on your combine. Good luck and be safe. Have a great harvest.